back in like 85, 84, 85, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. I was about, I would guess about 8 or 9 years old. Well, it might have been earlier than that. It must have been about 83, 84. But it was a few years after my dad passed away.
Yeah.
And so I have an older half sibling. Well, I have a few older half siblings. And one of them, just a knothead, all the way around, and um, but one of the things that he always did is he was very stubborn. It was just running the family, 'cause they're all stubborn, but he was one of the ones that doesn't use a lot of common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's saying a lot about, him because my other siblings are about the same way, you know. Um, but my dad, when he was alive, he would sweat and he would do different things, ceremonial wise and stuff like that. And so when he passed away, his sweat was still up. It was uncovered and everything. But one of the things that we were always told when we were growing up was that, sweats and stuff like that, you always leave them, alone after the person passes away. You don't touch them. You don't try to use them. You don't, you don't do anything with them. You just let them, basically disintegrate and go back to the earth.
Yeah.
And so my half sibling, my brother, he came out to stay with us. He lived out in that time, I believe, Portland, Oregon. And he would come out and he would stay and, um, just periodically. And so he came out and he started messing around down at my dad's sweat. And my
Mm-hmm.
mom told him, don't be messing with your dad's stuff. You leave it alone. And he just, didn't pay no attention, like an idiot. And he went down there and he cut it all up.
Oh.
And my mom was really mad at him. She told him, she said, you dumb, you know, MF.
Mm-hmm.
You just, you can't be messing with things. Do you not understand that? But you got to understand with him, he didn't grow up on the reservation. My half siblings never did. I mean, they grew up on reservations, but different ones. But with us, in particular, Blackfeet, we're very, and you know this, very staunch on how we do things, very strict.
Mm-hmm.
And so if somebody tells you don't do that because of this, you don't do it. So anyways, he cut it down and a few weeks later he left and he ended up over in New York City. It's a little side note on this, but my mom told him, you're going to end up having some bad luck because of that. And when he left, he ended up over in New York City a few months later and he ended up getting his head bashed in
Oh.
and got his eye knocked out. He lived, that's the one good thing about our family. We have hard heads. And he lived, but he lost his eye. Anyway, going back to, us on the res, he, after he did that, weird things start happening. Like, first it started out as little sounds at nighttime, and I told you a little bit about my house before and some of the stuff that was going on in there. Well, this was kind of, I think, in my mind, it was the event that, like the zero patient event. And so little things start happening, like sounds and stuff. Um, it started out like banging at night.
Yeah.
You ever hear concrete with, like when somebody's busting up concrete with, like, say, a sledgehammer?
Mm-hmm.
You've heard that, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like that ting, ting, it's pretty loud. Anyway, um, so it started out like that, where it was, this hammer, metal hammer, it sounded like on concrete. And it would always happen at nighttime. And it would ting, 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 like somebody was trying to bust something. And, we didn't know what to make of it. My mom didn't know what to make of it, We was just, my mom was very devout and praying.
Mm-hmm.
And so she would just pray, and this just kept happening. And then little events start happening. And I told you a little bit before about, her seeing that thing come out of my sister's room. And,
Yeah.
just to refresh everybody, it's kind of like a big yellow-eyed green creature,
Mm-hmm.
Kind of picture the Black Lagoon, that the creature from the Black Lagoon kind of, I guess, is the best way to describe it. Anyway, so those things start happening here and there, And the one thing about my family, and you know this from being around us, we always welcomed everybody into our home.
Yeah.
We always had relatives staying with us, and for the most part, all my cousins, when they would stay with us, they didn't drink or anything like that or do drugs at the house. They knew better because my mom would come unglued on them. But, she was, so they respected her, and they especially respected my dad. So, when they would stay, they would just hang out and visit and, and the typical teenagers joke around, have fun. And, so, they do this all the time. We'd have cousins that would come out, and because of how our hills and where our house is at, they would run the hills out there, because a few of them were athletes, they cross-country athletes and basketball players and stuff like that, because my dad was really into sports, so he was really encouraged people to do that stuff, to stay in shape and, just, make a good life for themselves. So, a lot of my cousins were very athletic. Anyway, so, we hear this all the time, this hammering and stuff, and it just went on for what seemed like months and months. And, pretty soon it stopped, right? It just stopped one day, stopped doing that. So we kind of just assumed, well, whatever the heck it was, it went away or it left. But after that stopped, then even more stuff start happening. You'd have, people crying outside. I told you a little bit about how the house one night tried to suck my sister out the window.
Yeah.
And all this weird stuff start happening. We had, things that would just show up. And, best way to describe it is it was just, so much going on that it was just weird. You'd see apparitions. There was these 3 apparitions that would walk by the house every night and literally go to this pile of rocks, and they would stand there and vanish.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like they didn't even know we were there. And so like my sister and my cousin, they both followed them actually, which, kind of stupid, but also, they wanted to see what the heck was going on. Those 3 spirits or apparitions didn't pay them no attention. They literally followed them to that